And we're live. Welcome back, everyone, to the HVAC 2.0 show. Got a few people with us. Oh, I see Joe's actually in the backstage. Let's
Oh,
bring him in.
okay. Hey, Joe.
There he is. Oh, you're muted.
Too many settings and too many streaming apps.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean. Well, how are you, Joe?
I'm doing okay. How about you guys?
Oh, can't complain.
We had a cool front come in. Like it literally dropped almost 25 degrees here. How about you guys?
Well, it was 96 degrees here today, and I think it's down 10 degrees, so it's quite a relief.
Okay, well, I should clarify. I'm in central Colorado. That puts that in perspective. It was in the 95s, so yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm upstate New York, Long Lake, Ontario.
Well, that's really hot for up there. Damn.
Well, it is still
Once
hot
in a
here.
while
We're
we get
picking up
over.
runs.
I think we're 92 design temp. Ronnie was talking about some guy who is complaining that his system that they installed 6 years ago wasn't keeping things cool enough this year.
Okay, well.
And Ronnie's done like all kinds of. They did measure quick. It's a 2.5 ton system. 97 degrees where he is today, it was producing 2.45 tons. And that's the airflow limit at 0.5. So it was right on 0.5 static. So I don't know if that guy wants a 3-ton system, but he apparently got a big saltwater fish tank in his basement, which appears to be kind of new as far as Ronnie could tell. The guy obviously is lying about all kinds of stuff, though, because Ronnie's like, geez, it looks like you have a new roof. He's like, yeah, they put the new roof on and had a ridge vent, but that screwed up the air conditioning. And so they took the ridge vent out and they put box fans in. And so he's messing with the enclosure left and right. Got an exhaust fan in the basement to try and help remove the humidity from the fish tank. It's like, well, I don't think that's a 6-year-old fish tank. Oh, I had that a long time. Oh, okay.
Yeah. If he's running all kinds of fans, he's probably just depressurizing the space and just pulling all the conditioned air out.
Yeah. Ronnie's like, okay, so, and then he's getting his ductwork is, there's condensation on the ductwork. It's like, well, you're probably going to have to insulate the ductwork if you're going to keep that fish tank. Right. You got a source of moisture right here and you got condensation occurring on your ductwork. What do you want to do? Get rid of the source of moisture or insulate the duct?
Just put a dehumidifier down there and have the drain just route back to the fish tank.
Right. I think there is a dehumidifier. So he's adding heat load too, and he's complaining that the house is only getting down to 77 when they're, what is design temperature there is 92 and indoor temperature design is 74 or something like that. So, it's 10 degrees over design, buddy. And you're getting within 4 or 5 degrees of set point. Thank goodness for, just thank goodness for Measure Quick, right?
Yeah, because I mean, it's one of those things where being able to, if it's worked in the past and it's just this last year, all of a sudden things have gone, wrong, and you can test and go, okay, well, the system is still doing exactly what it did the day we installed it.
Supposed to do.
Right. What changed?
So something else changed. You've made a bunch of enclosure changes. Well, odds are you've probably made your house worse in some regard or another, meaning it needs more cooling than it once did. Maybe
or better air sealing and insulation. Which do you want?
Yeah. First thing is like, how about I just turn the fans off and see what happens?
Well, that's what Ronnie asked him to do, and the guy's totally disregarding him.
Well, I mean, then it's okay, well, unfortunately,
Yep.
you've changed how your house operates and you've now made it need a 3-ton. You can either turn your fans off and we can try to make your house back to what it once was, or we can just replace this 6-year-old system with a new 3-ton system, and then it'll have the needed capacity to compensate for what you've added to it.
Not really, because he's only got 2.5 ton of duct.
Yeah, well, I guess you're going to have to, you want to replace ductwork
Gonna
as
have to
well?
replace ductwork too.
I mean,
So, Joe, one of the problems some of the guys are reporting, some of the guys are not having a problem with it. But so what we've built into the report now, it is, besides likely load range, we also have duct limitation. And we're going to offer, some people will offer a range of assessments to arrive at the duct limitation estimate, which will include visual, tape measure, static pressure, measure quick, and true flow. So how deep do you want to go? Sort of the same way with the load calc, which is, how deep do you want to go with your load calc?
Are you using the forecasting feature that TC built in, TrueFlow? Once you get your TrueFlow grid results, you can opt in for a forecasting as to either change your parameters or change your system, and it kind of gives you a guide as to
I
where
think
you would
Tanner
end up.
has a
Yeah.
spreadsheet for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I made a tool that I've put on the back end of my website because in the scenario, well, I mean, obviously, if you're using TrueFlow Grid, then absolutely you can just do it. That
Right.
workflow would be easier. But in scenarios that, for one reason or another, for me, if I not needed that, I'll just use that because I mean, it's obviously it's just a very basic equation for the fan law. So, you know, if you know all but one of the variables, you know, adjust it and see how that can change. That's typically how I come to the duct limitation forecast. Is what's the airflow of the system, what's the static pressure of the system currently, and then how do you change the airflow for what the new system may be, depending on how much you're going to downsize and such.
Yeah, it's fan law too, so
Yeah.
not something you can do in your head, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's something that for anyone out there, I made like a quick spreadsheet that I've shared with people just because it's like it's not that complicated, so you can make an easy spreadsheet calculator and just throw in what numbers that you need. It'll automatically tell you the answer. Something that's very useful to have, when you're out in the field.
I think Ronnie pissed off one of the salesmen the other day when he used your calculator and predicted in 1/100th of what it was going to be. How'd you get it so accurate?
It's like it's almost like there's a science to this.
Kreskin. I'm Kreskin. I do this stuff in my sleep.
The math doesn't lie.
So one of the problems some of the guys are having is, I think this is not reversing enough and not asking comfort questions in different ways so that people understand that duct limitation. Should I pull that up?
Sure.
Or do you have it?
The tool. Handy? Yes, I can. I've got it right here.
Yeah, I went to your website. I was looking for your tool there, Tanner.
It's on the back end. You have to have the exact URL because it's not a
Oh, I see. It's hidden.
Public facing type thing. Where's my links? There we are. I'll post it as a comment in case people want to take a look at it. I'll put it in the private chat as well, so that y'all can have it. I'll screen share real fast. There. So we'll throw like a quick example. We'll say say your static pressure's 0.8 at 1400 CFM, but let's say we're going to reduce down to a 2-ton system. Say we're going to aim for 400 CFM per ton. We can, which down here is that's actually not working. I'm not a programmer and I coded this, so don't expect amazing results.
No refunds.
Yes, no refunds. As soon as Grok gives me my money back on this, I will pass it down. But yeah, that's just a quick example of what that can look like, and that's something just to show like this is how big of a difference you can make just in downsizing. And it's kind of funny. People will be extremely gun shy to like drastically downsize, but really, if you will measure what the delivered capacity of just a really choked down PSC system would be, and you'll realize that okay, sure, it is a in this case a 3.5-ton system, but if you're choking it down so much that it's only doing 2 tons of cooling or 2.5 tons of cooling, you're not really downsizing. You're just allowing the system to actually operate and deliver deliver the air or deliver the cooling efficiently rather than just choking a system down and just sludging compressors with liquid constantly because of how low the airflow is.
Sorry, I put that over yours.
No problem. There wasn't much else to show.
This, Joe, is what I was talking about. This sufficient duct versus insufficient duct. So when you're talking to people about likely load range of their home, you can also show them where if they go above a certain size, they're going to need new duct work or significant duct improvements.
Well, what do you guys do about the assessment between the trunk versus all the takeoffs? Because sometimes I see that the trunk it wasn't really well designed, but it was probably adequate. But then they have all these small takeoffs, and that you could probably get a better performance by just let's increase your 6 to 8 inch and let's fix your flex. What are you guys seeing in the field for like improving the ductwork versus an entire replacement of trunk and lines?
Well, that gets a little tricky just because if you start, obviously, you start really, if you just go, okay, well, it appears the branches are too small, let's upsize them. Well, then, you're going to change how the ductwork is going to function. So it's like really, unless you redesign the system, see what sizes are actually needed to be there, and then work back from there, you're kind of just guessing a little bit. And so for what I've kind of found is I tend to say the first and easy ones are if it's flex duct for branches and they're just ran with a ton of slack. I'll be like, hey, this is something if we can take it loose, pull it tight, cut off the excess, and reattach. But just know that we're not redesigning the ductwork and we're not really changing anything. We're just going to make this current duct system flow easier. We're going to have less constraint. And that tends to be like a first step of if people want to move forward with that. The other scenario that there may be some duct modifications is if it's hey, we have one area that just it's showing signs of less airflow than what it needs to be. So it's hotter in the summer, it's cooler in the winter. And so in that situation, you'll say, okay, well, it looks like you've got, let's say, 1 6-inch duct going to it. We'll say, well, what we can do is we can try to upsize. We can, uninstall the 6-inch, upsize it to a 7, pull it tight, yada, yada, and we can see what kind of difference this makes. But just know we are just kind of guessing to a degree. We know we're going to get more airflow. We just don't know, are we going to get enough or are we going to get too much? We're not sure, but this is a easy, a simple method to give a try and see what happens. Because the alternative, again, is to redesign and do it all from scratch, which is going to cost a lot. So I tend to try to balance this, okay, here's what, if we want to just make sure, if we want to have a solution where it's when we pull out of the driveway, you don't have to worry anymore, well then we can go, full soup to nuts, do everything that's needed. But if it's not that big of a deal, if we're just wanting to try and see, and if we're okay with it not doing exactly what we hope it for, we'll try these cheaper options. And that's kind of the balance that I have tend to kind of
That's a
go
long
with.
way. That's a long way to saying it depends.
Yeah.
How far off it is,
Yeah.
how far we need to go, what their budget is like. Do you want to just change the collars?
Yeah. Because I mean, I've done like a quote unquote redesign where it would be replacing the system, and then I'll replace everything except for the main supply trunk. And we'll leave that in place.
Mhm.
We do new flex branches. I'll actually do a duct design based on those dimensions of that supply trunk. Upsize replace the return plenum because that's always drastically undersized, and just same register locations, same takeoff locations, just properly designed and sized, and have done that before. Uh, Again, I guess it's a lot of it depends, because it depends on the situation. Like some people are, it's kind of weird because some customers, they don't they don't really want to have all new. They want to, because it feels like you're spending a lot of money, but you can spend the same amount of money almost and replace all but a few things, and they feel like they're not, like, if they feel like they're getting a good deal.
They're recycling.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
exactly. And so they don't
Reusing.
feel like
Yeah.
they're wasting, stuff. And so it's just, it depends on the customer. And some people are like, if I don't have all new, I'm upset. Like, just the fact of knowing that I have something that's being reused bothers me. And so for those people, it's like everything. We're cutting new holes in everything.
Okay.
So what have you been up to, Joe?
Try a little bit of travel. Went out and got a son who's in law school and graduated. So that's like, holy cow, how'd that happen? Not
Oh,
sure.
wow.
Yeah, right. Bonus. Yeah.
Nice.
He was in the Coast Guard, so everything's free. He's using the GI Bill to pay for his school, so it's great.
Wow.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Some other family distractions, but in general, it's been, like, hey, this is happening tonight, and I'm out of town or not there. So, but I know you guys keep cranking away, but I was home, and in fact, I just got my brand new mobile trainer into my garage. So it's been over at,
Mobile trainer.
yeah, it's a pretty amazing mobile unit trainer. So I took pictures on my as I
Oh, so
before I
you're going
came
to
down.
drive around and tow a trainer with you?
Yeah, I got a trailer and everything for it. So
Oh,
yeah,
neat.
yeah,
Oh,
right.
nice.
Yeah. So um,
You just need a Cybertruck so you can plug it into the 240-volt outlet and you're good to go.
you're right, but I do have actually battery storage that I actually run it off. I have these two batteries that run 240, and I can run it right
Those
off of that.
those battery systems are so cheap these days, and they're small enough that you can schlep
Heck
them.
yeah.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, they weigh 100 pounds each, which isn't bad, about the size of a cooler.
Okay.
And plug them both in together to each other. I got
You got
240.
220
Yeah,
or 240.
yeah.
Yeah.
241, 242, whatever it takes. Yeah. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Huh.
That's cool. So you're going to be doing just on-site training. Is it kind of specific to who the trainees are going to be? Is it going to be like at companies like, hey, we really like our guys to, be able to understand the workflow with Measure Quick better, and you able to go out and like do some hands-on training with them?
Yeah, so for those who are listening and be like, well, our trainer that we have in our shop is great. So, but that's
Yeah, right.
oh yeah, we have a training unit. Come on over, and I come over, and it's a box. Sometimes they have a plenum on top. Sometimes there's no top on the plenum. Sometimes there's nothing on the bottom of the unit. So there's no way to get static out of the whole thing. I'm like, you have some ductwork on it. Yeah. I'm like, no, you have a plenum. That's not really ductwork. So I had to figure out that I would actually always be able to, I got it was a part of a grant that Denver had. So they were giving away many grants on how to do heat pump training and that. So I
Oh,
proposed to make this trainer, and then I proposed to get a trailer, and we've got some online curriculum that's just kind of general, and then I can advance that out to how it would work, that you'd take some of that before you take my class. And yeah, it's been pretty powerful. It took a lot longer to get here, but I'll try to, if I can share my screen, I'll do that. See if this happens. So that window.
I think I have to stop.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Yeah, so that I just took this in my garage. It's in my garage. Here's the unit. So
I'll add that. Okay.
yeah. So it's on wheels, and the top part comes off, so it fits in a normal door opening. So I could probably take it anywhere, and got a nice big trailer that I can haul it around with. Yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah. I'm really happy with it. So I can now play in my garage, and I could do soon to be able to do webinars and online training from my garage and a variety of stuff. So yeah, it's
I
got
think that'll
opportunity
be
now.
really excellent.
Yeah, and so you can see here on the side, and part of it being covered by the table that goes with it. But there's one return that actually comes off and allows me to do a remote return, so I can do a grill further off on the side. I got a bunch of flex duct. Here's a grill here, I mean a filter here, so I've got one filter slot, potentially a grill filter slot, as you see here. Here's your normal slot, and I got this other stupid slot right below the unit, so I could show people where to measure static in multiple locations, as well as where to put the true flow, depending on whatever kind of system you probably have.
And it looks like you got plexiglass and lighting.
Yeah, I do. So I can actually, we can zoom in here, but yeah, it's, we put some lighting in there so we can actually do that's the measure quick green, and I can do, make it red for heating mode or blue for cooling mode. But
oh
yeah.
my God, that's so
Yeah.
cool.
I thought you just had a bunch of UV lights in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you say useless lights?
Useless lights.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
but it's been, we started this 6 months ago.
I put my kid through college with those useless lights.
You're careful. If we're being recorded, then I have to be cautious. So
yeah, I can say this stuff.
Yeah,
just type it, and I'll say it.
They don't do anything. How about that?
Oh,
okay.
That's pretty tame.
That's pretty tame. That's pretty good. Yeah, right. Okay.
Although I saw them melt a humidifier once.
Well, no, they can create awful byproducts. They do awful byproducts, not just to that, but to a variety of stuff. So yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Right. It's okay.
Yeah, that was probably not the greatest indoor air quality when that thing was melting.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, definitely a lot of stuff, particulates, VOCs, the whole gamut. That's right. Yeah. So that's what I've been dealing with over the last whatever. So now I've got that, and I'm able to now start to play around with MeasureQuick again. It's always hard to play with MeasureQuick when you don't have a real system. So like I said, I keep going to these places and like, yeah, come check out one people called it an academy, and it was nothing but a bunch of exploded units that they used to learn how to make repairs. I'm like, well,
okay.
Yeah, you're not able to actually do assessments on these because you're just showing people how to always swap out parts. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah. So are there going to be like select dates that you'll be doing some of these training? Like, is there a place that people can go to if they're interested in these?
There will be. So I'm trying to figure out my schedule right now. That kind of takes me through most of the year. But we spun off our training for MeasureQuick onto Upskill HVAC, upskillhvac.com. So right now I don't have anything scheduled, but that's where you can go and see what we're doing and see how it works. I got a one pager there that kind of highlights some of the stuff. So, but I'm doing a training for conduit and ampli. I'm doing stuff on how to do duct assessment, blower door, duct leakage, IR, the whole home assessment process, MeasureQuick on multiple levels, including how to do the ACA QI stuff. So if you name it, I'm trying to figure out a way to provide that type of training. So it's holistic, and include all the things you can do with MeasureQuick. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And just to clarify, that is upskill, as in SKILL HVAC.com. If you're interested, go check it out.
Yeah, thanks.
I put it in the comment.
Great.
So what does Upskill do?
So our logistics with, MeasureQuick was doing training, but I wanted to broaden that. People wanted to learn more about how the systems could be working, or how to use just probes, or how to measure airflow, or how to do, a manual J with the LiDAR that's out there. So these are all like skills that I think people needed or wanted to learn in a day or less, half day for some of these. And that was our goal, is to not just be limited to come and just only learn MeasureQuick. It's come and learn how to be a better technician. So I'm not here to teach you the refrigerant process. I'm here to teach you how to be a better hands-on technician for what you can take back to your company. And I also do train the trainers and that kind of stuff. So we decided to just spin that off so it would be a broader concept as upskill. So that's really where we went. Yeah.
Awesome.
We tried to get some. We did get this grant. We tried for $1 million grant, and that didn't work out. And it probably was a blessing because all of those things have just a high level of logistics and things you have to do and accountability and a lot of stuff. And I wouldn't say the majority, but close to the majority of those funding that you get is going to administrative and keeping track of it and somebody scheduling and somebody keeping the grant moving and doing a lot of stuff. So all that money that's out there is, I'm not against it. Just got to be careful with what you wish for because there's more challenges.
Right. You're really not having that much impact. You're spending a lot of time in sort of bureaucratic stuff.
Yeah, many of them don't have logistics that you must be training X amount of people, or X amount of people also get jobs or get interviews. So they're reluctant to push people into, like, if you want this money, it's kind of like the same way sports are. Sports are like, I don't know if you guys remember when we were all kids, like players got paid on how well they played, so play well and you can make more money. And now it's like, just pay them. So nobody cares, if they don't really care if they're doing well or not. So I think we need to put more impetus on show up before you get paid. So we're not doing that. Yeah.
I think we're all really tired of the participation award stuff.
Right. Yeah. Right. But you say that I give out not participation award, but I give you a certificate of completion, just saying you came to my class and you learned how to use Ampli or somebody, just so you have something to show your boss that you did complete that. Whether or not you actually paid attention, and I don't test out right now. So if you came and you can't show how to use it, then that's your own fault. So
right. And so you're responsibly avoiding responsibility for the badge you're giving.
That's right. Yes, and I'm upfront about it.
Attendance certificate.
Yeah, that's right. It is a participation. Wait, you were here?
No, that's not. That's a little different than participation award, I think. I mean, an attendance certificate for something that you're not required to show up to is.
Yeah, it's
not you showed up.
Yeah, no, but you have to be in my class. But to be, full statement. I'm not testing you out as part of the process. Be honest, sometimes I just have not gotten to that level. Like, okay, I can test you out, or I have time to test people out. Normally, we're all like trying to get through the logistics that go along with hands-on training today. With, I mean, when I do a Measure Quick class, people don't realize I lose an hour because of some glitch with somebody's iPad or phone or fat fingers or just people doing it, or they've got an iPad. They have the very first iPad. I'm like, that's not going to work. So there are some challenges that go along with teaching technology. So, yeah.
Well, I'm going to experience that in a couple of weeks here, I think, because a friend's invited me to come talk to his sales guys, and I have no idea what to talk to them about. So it's going to be, I guess you create an account like this, and then this is the process, and we'll go down through it.
Or you could just have them go ahead and create the account and tell them to create a client, play around in it, get a little familiar, see what it's like, and then you can just answer questions immediately and then be like, here's what the workflow looks like.
Are you talking Measure Quick?
No, for HVAC20 for sales.
Oh, right. Yeah,
for the sales process. Mm-hmm. And I'm still like stuck on. There's this barrier, like how many salespeople are actually going to get the tools even to do static pressure?
Well, let's back up because I know we went down the static pressure path a while ago, but who here has the confidence to want to drill a test port?
Oh, right. Like, I don't want to drill a hole.
I have a solution. I have a solution for you. Okay. Since we met, I don't know if I had this on my last one. So, Retrotech sells their probes that are super small. They're like probably a 1/16 of an inch tubing, right? And they got a little adapter that allows you to put a tiny test port in and then use it to get static out of it. So
Yeah.
I've been working with a lot of people that they're not allowed to put a opening in the unit. I said, well, why won't, if you put a screw, just a tiny little sheet metal screw into the middle of a plenum, would anybody notice? No.
Oh, and use
Yeah,
a
just-
sheet metal screw as your drill.
That's
yeah,
right.
just back
right.
the screw out, put that RetroTech
Oh
probe
my
on there.
God! And then this,
Yeah.
and
Wait,
then the screws your
wait.
plug.
That's right. The screw's your plug. That's right. But there's
Yeah.
sometimes there's a screw there that you could probably take out and get your pressures. That's plan A.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Like, no, if not, okay, screw. The challenge was some of them you have insulation you gotta poke out, but you could poke that out with the probe. So
Yeah.
Right.
It's very safe opportunity to put a test port in, and if you weren't allowed, then you just don't identify. I tell people if you do it as a company, then you put a little marker on it, put a little red dot on it or something. You identify that screw is where we did our pressure test. So there's your ability for somebody who doesn't want to drill a hole. Can they just put a screw in and use that?
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
the problem with this is now you can't really ever tell if somebody's taking static pressure on the system.
Well,
Whereas before it was pretty obvious. You'd walk in and you're like, well, nobody's ever taken static pressure.
well, you could mark it or mark the screw or put a sticker on it. So there are ways to, if you really want to do
Right.
that. So as a company, we do this and we put a sticker saying test port was taken here. But yeah.
Where are they not allowed to do that?
Well, most salespeople don't do that.
No, right.
Right. So people who do HERS ratings aren't really allowed to do that. And throughout most of Florida and Texas, they're not allowed to do anything like that. So there's just a lot of people that aren't, weatherization people don't do that. So there's just a lot of groups that want to measure the static, which is incredibly powerful, and they're limited. So, but if you wanted to sneak in a screw, you probably could get your measurements.
That
Yeah.
is a brilliant workaround.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those RetroTech probes are extremely. Even if you don't even have to have a set of them. If you just get one of just the tube itself, you only have to have the magnetic holder. But that thing is extremely handy because there's always situations where, for some reason or another, you can't really you can't get a good placement hole where you need to, or you're in a spot where you're like, this is a little sketchy.
Can't
Being
read.
able to just pop a screw out or find some little gap or something like that you can just shove that in. It's super handy.
Yeah, with many of these filter slots we've got now, you can work right around that with that little probe and stick it in a variety of places. There's a lot of things. There's usually sometimes enough gap in the freaking duct itself that I can be like, oh,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, it doesn't take a
and,
lot. Right.
And then checking if you have a filter grill to check pressure drop across the filter, being able to just poke it right through in a corner.
Yep.
That's probably what I use it for the most.
But they're $20 for a set. It's really not like, it's not a
Oh yeah,
a killer. Yeah, right.
yeah. I mean, the only thing is, the only negative is, so I have my DG8 in like a little a bag with all my static pressure tips, drill bits, and all this other stuff, and I just have it all in one little kit. You would want to keep it with that because it is like, I mean, it's a very thin tube, so if you just throw it in your tool bag, it's probably going to get bent. So
Yeah, right.
it is. That's probably the most annoying thing. My other ones, when you buy them, they come in this little like cardboard tube, and so I keep those in just the regular tube, and then I just have those as like, for some scenario that I have to use just these for some reason, then I keep another that's just in my little bag for the times that I'm going to check pressure drop across the filter, or I need it in one particular situation.
Yeah, I made a little holders out of CPVC or PVC with little caps on it. So because when I travel, that's also a logistics.
Oh,
and I also
yeah.
have the one from Evergreen Telemetry. Those are like much longer and completely flexible. You actually can bend them into a circle and straighten them back out.
Wow.
Those are pretty impressive. Yeah.
I've not seen those.
Yeah. You can NCI supports that, but you can go to Evergreen Telemetry and do those. So okay, what do you got
So
there?
this is the smallest tubing I have.
Okay.
Right
Yeah,
here, which is sort of bendy, and I used it for a lot of times.
Yeah.
I would do it for checking room to room.
Right. Yeah, no, these are like super. These are like
super tiny compared to this.
Oh yeah. They feel like they look
This
like a
actually
needle.
is about the same size as this. That's
Yeah,
a little
looks like it looks like a needle. the new ones, the retro. And
Okay.
RetroTech is, Sam was pretty creative about it, but many people that are friends of our little building science industry have been making these for a long time. I have a variety of them. You could go to Hobby Lobby and just get tiny tubing and tiny little brass tubes, and
So you
there
get
you
them
go.
brass so they're a little stronger, because
Yeah.
this stuff I think is aluminum. That's why it's so
Yeah.
bendy.
Yeah. Right.
But I think this did come from, I did stop at a hobby store to get this.
Okay.
But that's a really good tip. What is some of the stuff I had?
So wait, what did I miss? What have you guys been doing the last couple of weeks?
Eric has been making a lot of improvements to the software, and we're trying to improve the flow and improve some areas where, so through our sales process, there's a lot of mindset shifting that occurs. And so we're trying to help people reframe their brain. And then particularly Austin is having some frustrations with, like, he's going into a house that's got 4-ton system on 2.5 ton of ductwork. And he goes over the whole process. And then at the end, the people say, well, I just want another 4-ton. And so he feels like he needs some help with that. Ronnie, I think, has a pretty good way of dealing with that. So, by going back and forth between likely load range and the duct constraints to help people understand, look, if you're going to size above your duct constraint, you probably need to go with modulating equipment. And then if you don't, he's putting a lot of disclosure into the contract. And so what we're trying to do is build that logic path into the sales process so that it's clearly documented that the salesperson attempted to help people get the reframe that, you got 2.5 ton of duct, which means that your 4-ton was delivering 2.5 ton of capacity. It was robust equipment back when accuracy really didn't matter and it didn't blow things up. So, but what you don't realize is you only got 12 years instead of 20 years because you were making it work a little too hard. But you can't do that with the new equipment. If you have 2.5 ton of duct, you better not put 4 ton of equipment on there. You're going to have lots of problems. And you're going to not be covered under our labor warranty because we warned you not to do this. And the manufacturer may decide to opt out of warranting you too if they see a frequency of claim.
Well, you guys have been seeing all this recent lawsuits, right? It's been all over the HR news and other stuff. People are like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm suing you because you put a system that's the wrong size in my house. And it's never that it's no. I don't think none of the lawsuits have. It's too small. It's always been
right.
It's too large and not performing. So yeah.
It's too large, and what people don't realize is your equipment never ran continuously before, so it was oversized. So what we're trying to do is create a process that educates them to the fact that they don't have enough ductwork, and they probably don't need larger ductwork anyway, because whatever the size of their ductwork was their limiting factor, and they were happy with the way it was before. So although it said 4 ton on the nameplate, they were losing 1.5 tons before it got to the room. And so they were really only getting 2.5 ton. And so do they want to replace their 2.5 ton, 4 ton unit with another 2.5 ton unit, or what do they want to do? And that's kind of the narrative we're trying to build and move people along to, and help them understand that most houses your size are best suited sizing into the green.
Yeah, and then how do you overcome that when somebody says, "No, I still want a 4-ton"? They're still afraid of the opposite. So, and they're not facing their real fears. Is that great? You have a system that doesn't work, and it was you who said, "I still wanted that." You know.
And that's what we're trying to do, is have multiple points where we've tried to help them shift their perspective, and so that, because we can't tell them what to get, but we can make them assume ever more responsibility for their decision. And so a lot of that comes around coming at the same problem from a little bit different angle. And so it's like, I came at him this way and he rebuffed me, and I came at him this way and he rebuffed me. And so, but I tried.
It seems as though the easiest thing for a contractor to do is put the same damn thing in. So here you have somebody trying to explain to you what you really need, and you're not listening. They're not listening to anything he said. They were just, turned it all off. They already thought they knew everything they needed to know. So it seems crazy that they would not want to listen to. There was no compromise. They didn't like, well, can you do just less than 4 or whatever it is. So it seems as though no matter what you did, you couldn't get into that person's persona. They were already past that. So
fortunately, this is a very small percentage of the people that are doing this process, and Ronnie is the one that's by far doing the most, because he's doing about 400 leads a year. So if anybody wanted to be like, okay, so who's the expert on free quote, it's Ronnie, because he's, and he's on target probably for another $3 or $4 million of sales this year. So he's really killing it. And he's bumping his revenue per lead to, I think he said it was somewhere between 8 and 10 for the year. So his average sale, I think, $17,000. Closing rates close to 60. So it's really working very well for him. And it's really helping him sell very good equipment, because the 6 functions is the first step, right? You talk to the homeowner about the 6 functions and find out if there are any functions that they want their house to have that their car has. And a lot of times that is the reframe. And once you get them to reframe on the 6 functions, then the rest of it's pretty easy, because they'll be more open to the reframe on sizing. And this is, houses your size generally have a load range of here to here. And if you want us to do a really good load range, we're happy to do that, but it's $500. And we'll look at your old energy bills, and we'll do a load calc and a blower door, and we'll true our load calc to your energy bills just to make sure that everything reconciles. And then we will have high confidence in your worst case load. And then we're still going to recommend that you size to the green, because if you size to the green and you have any comfort issues, you can tighten up the house.
The one thing that's always been kind of like strange about this industry is that it's not like there's 43 different options. Most people aren't a 2-ton, so you're probably at a 3 or 4, and there's those few that are at 5. So you're 3, 3.5, 4. And it seems that
so we're finding most people aren't over 3.
Right. Okay.
And this is a good thing, because what happens to your ductwork once you go to 3.5?
It has to be really, really big, and it very rarely is really, really big.
So it's really nice that most homes, and I'll say that this is climate dependent a little bit, and it's size of the house dependent a little bit, but we're doing 3-ton and less for 3,500 square foot houses pretty much everywhere in the country.
So there seems to be my point indirectly there was that there's a lot of effort to try to convince people of a narrow range that I need for you to pay attention to. And if you're out of that range, you're not going to be happy. But there's
that's right. And part of it is what we really want is, so this is the 5% of your winter or your summer. It's really, really hot. And you're focusing on that. And what we're hoping that you'll do is you'll focus more on this 95% where you're uncomfortable and annoyed some way or another. And if you would think more about that and worry less about this, okay, so maybe you have to wear a sweater for one evening every winter. And if that's something you can live with, then you don't need to air seal your basement. Or if that's something that's annoying to you, then air seal your basement. You won't have to live with that sweater anymore because you'll reduce your load so that the equipment won't be a little bit short. But now you don't have to change your ductwork because you got equipment that's the right size for your ductwork. And what we really want you to do is have equipment that won't cycle on and off. Where was that? There's that great Carrier. And I'll text this to you because this is sort of if I can find it. Window. There it is. If you have single stage, it's off and on, hot and cold, noisy and silent. Turn up the volume on the TV and turn it down. And the equipment cycling, like this equipment is rated in cycles, right? So if you're going to get this, it's going to cycle a lot, which means it's going to wear out quicker. And you get the 2-stage, it'll run longer, so it'll cycle less. And its output will vary, so it'll be more matched to the load. But it won't be matched to the load if you have a 2-ton system now and you move to a 3-ton system, because the 3-ton 2-stage drops to 2.5 ton. So you've actually gotten yourself to, you've gone from a 2-ton to a 2.5 ton because you're never going to need that 3. And this is hard for people to get grasp. And we're seeing a lot of problems with people upsizing because they're getting 2 stages. But if you go over here to the modulating, well, it'll just, operate like adjusting your gas stove up and down. And it'll never shut off. And you'll always be comfortable, and it'll only need it won't use a whole lot of energy and then no energy. It'll use just the energy, it'll just replace the energy that's lost to the outdoors.
I was trying to figure out an analogy of like, okay, you have a garage door opening and you can't fit your truck in it. That's your 4-ton, right? But I can fit my car in it, and that's the size you needed. So there's got to be an analogy that people just can visualize as to why I can't shove 4 tons of stuff down a 2-ton opening.
I guess sometimes I use milk jugs, sometimes I use fire hose, garden hose, and straw. I think we will get like 3 or 4 of these narratives that are sort of like standard narratives to talk about each of these steps. And something that is sort of served up on a plate for somebody like Austin, as opposed to, Reedy, Ronnie, Tanner, or Tim, who really are black belts at this stuff.
I'm trying to read some of the comments that you've got. And they're, on my view, they're cut off. Maybe I'm missing something, but I was trying to see more of the comments that are here.
Oh, I didn't even notice there were comments. I'll drill you a hole.
Yeah, I saw that. I got your hole.
Those other comments were me just, if you go to the private chat, I was just cutting and pasting my notes.
Yeah, thanks. I see comments from YouTube, so I was trying to see some of those comments that are there.
Yeah. Shanks and Ganks.
Yeah, which one other thing while we're kind of searching through here, while we were talking, I was kind of running some numbers of Ronnie's. So if he is doing $9,000 per or $9,000 of revenue per lead run, I was kind of working this math backwards. If we assume that they're doing a 50% gross profit margin, I don't know what their profit margin actually is, but if it is 50%, uh, if it costs them $250 per lead to get, if they give that $250 lead to Ronnie, he's currently working at a 1 to 18 cost of acquiring a customer to lifetime value ratio, or CAC to LTV. So in other words, you give every dollar you take, if you give it to Ronnie, he's turning it into a minimum of 18 at $250 a lead. If you're somehow being able to get it down to $100 a lead, that is a 1 to 45 LTV to CAC. So you give him $1 and he's giving you back $50, just for like hindsight and better understanding of what that $9,000 revenue per lead run means.
Under $5,000, they start to get unhappy. Under $4,000, they start to put a person on probation, I think. So will you run those numbers at 5,000? I don't know what the average is, but I think that the average, I would love to know what the average is across the industry. I suspect it's between 5 and 6.
Yeah. So okay. So if it's 5,000, we're looking at, let's see. Which at 5,000, assuming 50% gross margin, then that's a 10 to 1 at $250, or a 25 to 1 at $100. But $100 is quite low. So the odds of that is it. But also the people, if you're only doing $5,000 of revenue per lead run, that I would imagine they're probably not as good of a salesperson. And if they have the ability to discount, they probably are to get those.
Yeah.
So
So
you're probably
margin drops.
Yeah, so you're probably not actually a 50% margin for those individuals. So you drop that even more, I mean, you're getting like it's still profitable, sort of. It's just it's a very inefficient engine. It's like there's a big difference in being able to, on the high end, have an 18 to 1 versus a 10 to 1 for, for that. Like that's a huge difference there. I mean, it's
I wish they
nearly
would keep track of their warranty expense attributable to the salesperson,
yeah,
because I have a feeling Ronnie has very low warranty expense attributable to the salesperson, because he knows all of these things and he's such a good salesperson that people are comfortable downsizing their equipment and getting better equipment, getting the modulating equipment.
yeah,
So the outcomes end up being a lot better.
yeah,
And then when there are bad outcomes, it's, if they get him involved, he goes to the contract, says, do you remember when we said this and you said you wanted this? Remember when we said this and you said you wanted this? Okay, what do you want to do now?
yeah. I mean, in a perfect world, definitely that would be, if you could track that to truly see what a salesperson, how much value are they truly bringing, and that's how much revenue do they bring in, at what gross margin, at how much, like how many leads did it take to win that, plus what's the warranty,
What's the go back?
what's the go back on that, and factor all that in to see what's the actual lifetime value of a sold lead by this salesperson.
They
because
need to keep track of the cause of go back, because sometimes the cause of go back is going to be a bad install,
yeah,
not a bad design.
yeah, yeah, because like if you could thoroughly keep track of that, and that, because then you're truly going to know who's your best salesperson. Then you can go, okay, this salesperson, he gets all of the best leads. Everybody else gets scraps, because
Right.
why would you not? You have to be retarded to
If
want to
I
give
take
your work. Yeah,
$250, give it to you, and it comes back as 5,000
yeah,
in net profit, and I give it to him and it comes back as 2,200.
yeah,
But I think people have trouble making the jump from the beginning of that conversation all the way to the end, because there are a lot of different steps in between.
oh yeah, and it's a lot to track as well. Like that's not a. If it was simple, everybody would do it. Like it would be a no-brainer. But
So that's one of the things that we're going to be building in, is keeping track of sales.
yeah, that is something I think will be big, because there's not. Granted, I'm sure Service Titan, you can build it out. I'm not familiar with it very well, but all of the other ones, there's not really good sales metrics. I mean, you'll have like closing ratio, or you might have just, what's your total revenue for the month, the quarter, in the year, and such. But like, there's not anything that really breaks it down well. And if it does, then it's going to be convoluted, because it's going to be mixing, especially if someone's like more my size, everything gets blended together. So it's like the service call and the sales call is being blended, and such. And so having something that you can easily go, okay, for every sales call ran, this is what, you get, because it should is it's it's such just useful information, because it's useful because you can predict and track what you're doing. You can, like, if you can understand your lead sources better. If you find a lead source where it's like, oh, this lead source is relatively low and it turns into high conversion rates, well, guess what? I'm going to take every penny I have and I'm going to put into this lead source, etc. Or
This is
if
all the stuff that you're really sort of noodling through and trying to figure out where to do for
yeah,
yourself right now, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, that's what I'm looking at. And then if someone, like as a salesperson themselves, in order to get better, if you're able to really track and see what's, going on, you're able to, more thoroughly diagnose what you might be doing wrong, and how to, create that feedback loop for yourself to just get better over time.
That's a skill. That's a skill that most people don't understand or even put time into doing that kind of nuances. So where do I really make more money out of the money I'm spending?
Yes, yes, and that's like, if you are a small business, like, that is exactly what business is. All it is resource allocation. You're analyzing the marketplace. You're figuring out where is the best place to put my resources at. Resources being time and money, because you can put your time and money and dedicate it into one thing, but if that thing is dumb, you're not getting anything out of it. The ones that become successful are the ones that figure out, either by chance or intentionally, oh, this is a good outlet. Let me channel everything here, because this is what's going to get me my reward. And those are the ones that make it. But like, I mean, like you just said, Joe, I think especially for the trades, most shops are techs who decided that their owners are just making too much money and they want to make it themselves. And so they decided that they could just go be business owners, and they went out on their own. That's probably I mean, you'll know way more than me, but I would imagine that's probably the bulk of
Yeah,
Well, they
those.
got a DWI, and so they're not hireable.
yeah. Well, no, what we're also finding indirectly is that after about worst case 4, but usually around 2 to 3 years, they go back because
Oh yeah.
they
They
saw
realize that other 50% of the work that they weren't factoring in when they were looking at the money coming in.
that's right,
Yeah.
or that distracted for what they really want to do. They wanted to be hands-on and connected with clients and other stuff, and realized that this was way more than I didn't realize how distracting this was. So
Oh
they're like,
yeah.
forget that.
I want to work with my hands. I don't want to work on QuickBooks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Me
everybody
too. That's
thinks
why you
that
pay
their
for a bookkeeper.
spouse. Yeah, oh, my wife will love doing this. We can do this
my wife
together.
will love doing
And
this.
her wife's like, "Wow, this isn't
What
what we
happened to
signed
my
up for."
sex life? Oh, I turned my wife into my bookkeeper.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is such a great like track of thinking. It'd be like, oh, I hate doing this. This is the worst thing ever. What should I do? How about if I get my partner to do this thing that absolutely sucks? I'm sure they'll love that.
Mm.
That's why you find like the unique people who do like that type of thing and are actually good at it. So that way you don't, bankrupt yourself because you thought you was getting so much money back at tax time. It's like, wow, all these people paying all these taxes. I'm not paying anything. This is great. Then a few years later, IRS comes knocking like, hey, turns out you can't deduct the same thing 3 times. Sorry, that's not how it works.
So I'll do a shameless plug if nobody cares, right? So
Nope, go
Plug
ahead.
away.
yeah, so I met this gentleman, Furman Hayes, who is just if you were down at the symposium, you would have probably run into Furman Hayes. He was a younger guy, and he realized that a lot of people don't want to do what we're talking about, and that is so he created a series of AI and algorithms and support mechanisms so that doing all these office strategies and things and payroll and invoicing and whatever. So he developed this thing called Work Hero, all one word, workhero.pro, as a service. Like, hey, we can help you with that. So for those smaller companies that like, you know what, I don't want to do that stuff. He has this ability for people to plug in and decide whether this works for them to not have to figure out how this processing of paying for all of my systems and all that kind of stuff. So I have not used it. I just seen what he describes it and the people that are using it. It's a brand new type of service that says, okay, we can use.
AI is
Yeah,
going to be amazing, isn't it?
yeah. What can AI do for my business when it actually has responsible ownership behind it? Yeah,
That's cool. I'll have to check that out.
yeah. And I'm
So
sure
where
that
else are you traveling, Joe? I mean, are you going to just be traveling within Colorado or Colorado?
yeah,
Utah,
for a while. Yeah, I'm here for a while. I don't see. I mean, I have personal travel that my goal is to do, go see my daughter and other stuff. But I'm not. I'm trying to get up to Minnesota to visit a dealer up there, and I have somebody in Nantucket that wants me to come do training. And my wife's like, Joe, schedule that. Joe, come on.
Yeah,
get that going.
right.
Yeah.
Are you going to drive all the way to Nantucket?
No, they'll pay for have everything shipped out there. So most of that, when I fly, I can cram everything usually into one nice little case that does everything I need
Okay.
with all my tools. I have a case now for the True Flow that carries all my little probes and everything. So that's not the challenge. And he's like, well, there's lots of people that aren't here in the summer, so you should come out. And so those are my 2 goals right now. So yeah.
Neat. And then Minnesota, will you drive?
Nope. I usually just to me, I'm an 8-hour max kind of a person for that stuff. So
Okay.
and after that, it's like I probably could have driven to the airport and flown and saved time and not money. I get that it's super cheap to drive someplace, but there's just a certain amount of time that I just don't really want to sacrifice. Yeah. So
I'll give up a day not to have to stand in the TSA line.
yeah. So yeah, a day would be 8 hours. So if I can drive for 8 hours, clearly that would be a better option. But even 10. But after that, I'll do that. So I have traveled down for the most part. So yeah. How about you guys? What kind of training do you have coming up for 2.0? I know you mentioned you have one you're going to travel to. What else you guys got?
Otherwise, it's all in Kajabi. So, for example, sounds to me like Ronnie has his company. His company wants like more Ronnies and Austins. And so they're asking Ronnie how to accomplish that. And I wish I could understand exactly what the pain is behind this desire to have more Ronnies and Austins. I suspect it's Ronnie and Austin can go out and solve problems nobody else can solve. You know, having
Less headache.
measure quick, true flow, blower door, you know, pretty quick here. You are the one that can really figure out what's going on in a house.
I always ask, is it a technical thing or a personality or a combination of both? But because some people are, super skilled but have a hard time communicating it, and other people are communicating stuff and really don't have anything behind it. So I always wonder what's jumping out of their persona.
Well, it's the HVAC20 comfort console.
Yeah, no, but I meant like the three of us could all go on the same, consult, and one of our personalities would match better than the others, just as an example. So some people have, there could be something inherent in their voice, their communication, their body language. Is there something that's not being bluntly evaluated? Is my question.
Well, the interesting thing is Ronnie and Austin have very different personalities.
Wait, but let me pause. It wasn't about those two specific.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Okay, it was about like, okay, when
Just
we
in
have,
general.
this one guy, Chris, has blown it up. How do I get another Chris, right? And it's not always that you're repeating Chris, is I need to find the attributes that work that Chris has. So I just want to I don't want to be specific about those two because I don't know them well enough, and I didn't want to criticize either one of them or have you guys get stuck with that. So the question is that are we evaluating the physical conditions that sometimes a person has? It may be their voice, maybe their mannerism, maybe something that needs some slight direction or tweaking is my feedback on this.
Right. Like more Sandler training.
Yeah, but even Los Angeles, you're still there's something about how we come across that sometimes people are just not stopping and helping this person with their mannerisms or their voice or something. Sometimes there's something inherent in us that nobody's given us just blunt feedback on about how to be a little better at these things. So that's kind of my direct backwards insight. Like, okay, is somebody who likes them enough, who's there, you know what, I'm going to shoot you straight for just a minute here, Chris. These are things that the people you're in front of may be noticing that we need to figure out a way to tweak out of you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely true, and which is something that there's a guy on YouTube, Alex Ramosi. Listeners have probably heard of him, at least if you're in the business space, you definitely have. But something I think he articulates extremely well when it comes to soft skills when you're helping those types of people is, soft skills, when people say that, they're typically describing a bunch of micro skills altogether, and they don't like analyze the individual skills of what those are. They just go, oh, you just need to work on soft skills. They go, what does that mean? It means a bunch of little things, and it just doesn't get hyper defined. And so for some people, like you said, there will be little things that they do that can throw someone off that is a problem. But unless you really stop and like narrowly define what those little issues are and go, okay, hey, Chris, here's a problem. When you come in, you do everything great, but you stare at their feet the whole time you're talking to them. Like, you got to look them in the eyes a little bit. It's like you're narrowly defining, hey, do this exact thing. Like when you go in, you look them in the eyes, you shake their hand, like narrowly go do this, this, and this. It can't just be hey, don't be an asshole. It's like, well, that doesn't mean anything. What is it that you're doing that is making you come across as an asshole? It's like, well, before you say, a statement, give a softening statement. We all know like reversing is a really good thing, but if you only reverse and you don't soften the reverse before you reverse, it's going to come off wrong. And so you have to, figure out what are those little things to do to really make that work.
And you both know that the only way to do what you described is that you have to just live it. You can't do it at work.
Yeah.
That those things actually have to happen all the time you communicate with your family, with your friends, and it just becomes who you are, is to trying to be better at that, because you can't just, okay, I'm at work, I'm now going to focus on how do I do this reverse, or actively open-ended questions. If you only do that at work, then you're not, it's not thorough, and just you automatically coming out of you.
Yep.
So anyway, these guys are wanting more comfort consultants, and Ronnie has them realizing that there are less than 20 comfort consultants in the country. There's a very high failure rate, and it'd be very expensive to train them just to have them fail. What they really need to do is to build from the bottom instead of trying to take somebody and put them at the top from nowhere. Build a workforce of people that may decide that they want to go up to that next level. And so now what he's conveyed to them is that best way to do this is get people familiar with the free quote process. And then if they have success with the free quote process, maybe then they would want to learn what it takes to be a comfort consultant. And then they'll have a built-in source of prospects for that promotion path. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm hopeful. Having been one of the few people on the planet that's actually taught these people this process, I know that it's exhausting, and it takes hours and hours of coaching almost every day. And I don't think anybody can really afford to do that. If somebody asked me, how much would you take to train a comfort consultant? I'd be like $100,000. And you'd have to be great. You'd have to show a lot of gratitude.
Yeah, which and what we're trying to do, because ideally you can avoid a lot of the scenarios in which a comfort consultant is needed should be alleviated at just a standard free quote. You don't need to go consult. So then if you can offload the necessity of it to not being needed as much, one person can cover such much more of a ground. So like in their company's case, you really don't need a bunch more Ronnies and Austins. You just need Ronnie and Austin, but you need the support from everyone else into working with them.
Right.
And that's their real problem.
If you had a better process that didn't create all these problems out of your process, then the Ronnie and Austin, you wouldn't need as many Ronnie and Austins to come fix the problems that were created by bad process.
Yeah, you wouldn't need a bigger cleanup crew if you just didn't make as big of a mess.
You wouldn't need a big cleanup crew if you didn't make as big a mess. Yeah. But it's hard. Ronnie's been working on trying to convey this to them for a long time, and I don't know. He's a pretty good salesman, so I'm not really sure why it hasn't sunk in. But it's starting to now, finally, which is exciting.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, is it the people that Ronnie is selling to, or is it the people that those people are trying to sell to? In the scenario.
Oh, right. So in other words,
he's not talking to the decision maker.
He's not talking to the decision maker. That's actually a good point. So the people he's talking to may be hearing it, but they're also trying to figure out how they're going to talk to the people who they have to get approval to change their sales process.
Yeah. It kind of makes me think of scenarios of where when you're dealing with a church, it's like you have your liaison that you're dealing with, and they're having to go to the committee who's actually the people that make the decision, and you are always completely off limits to the committee. Like no matter what you do, you can't talk to them directly. And so it's like when dealing with churches, it just always seems to be you give them the information you can, you try to put it in writing so that way they could just hand it off, and then you kind of hope for the best because
right. You have no control.
As far as you can go. Yeah. You can't go any further than that.
But the interesting thing the part that's confusing to me is if you have a sales force that doesn't really have any dedicated professional technical sales process, they all sort of have a shoot from the hip sales process. And you actually move to a dedicated, documented process so that you can actually know what the hell is going on with every one of your leads. Are you risking getting yourself into trouble?
I think you probably, there's a perception that you are, because if it's already known that the culture is, hey, sales guys, you're shooting from the hip. Sure, there's these other two guys, they're doing way better than everyone else because they've got their own little weird way, but like a lot of them probably don't really care. They're like, I'm making enough there to where I'm happy, and that's it. So there probably is like a perception of risk of going, oh, if we come in and now tell all these people, hey, I know we've told you you can do whatever and you can shoot from the hip, that's coming to a stop. Now you have to do this. There's probably this like perception of like, oh, this is going to be a problem. We're going to get a bunch of pushback. What if they start getting, they leave and they start going to the competitors because they're like, oh, the competitor, they'll let me do whatever I want. So I'm just going to go over here instead. Maybe there's something there, but
that's an interesting point. I was thinking that originally the way to do it was to offer it up.
Mm-hmm.
And like
that would be the softest way to do it, because really, I don't know, to me, if I was analyzing this problem, I would go, okay, what's the problem? Problem is we have underperformers. Now it can be that they just don't have structure, and so we've got good people that are just not being helped out enough in order to make them be as good as they can be, or we have sucky salesmen. If we have sucky salesmen, we need to get rid of them anyways.
Right.
So I would probably see it as like, okay, we're going to do it, and then have, okay, Ronnie, you're making X amount. Okay, well, we need you to like help train these other people. So what we're going to do is we'll work out a deal to where these people, as they make sales, you'll get a spiff off of theirs because you're helping train
putting
them.
energy.
If you can help take our staff of say 20 salespeople, we're going to have to condense it down, but we want to take all these leads and direct it towards the people who's actually going to give us those high revenue per lead run numbers. Help us do that, and we will reward you type situation. So then, we can then you could try to get rid of the fluff, get rid of your low performers, find the ones who have promise and give them the time and resources to elevate them and get them where they can be. And then, and overall become more efficient with all the leads that you're getting in general.
So the other thing they could do is they could take everybody that's got a revenue per lead of less than $5,000 and say, you guys have to use this.
Yeah.
Like it's that or leave, because we don't want you anymore if you're going to continue to waste our leads.
Yeah. And if I'm a company that I'm trying to test something out, that would be exactly how I'd want to do it, because I'd want to go, okay, if this works, theoretically, we should be able to take it and hand it to our worst people and see their numbers go up.
Right.
Because,
what's the risk is somebody that's really doing terrible anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
they need help or they need to move on.
Yeah. It's like Johnny over here has got a 20% closing ratio. What's going to happen? I mean, those people.
Is that you, Timmy? What are you doing?
Is there a mad noise, or what's the noise?
Is that? It sounds like a compressor.
I think it's my stupid AirPods.
Those apples. Apple products always doing Apple things.
Those Apple products doing Apple product things.
God.
But so I mean, just tell the people that are, doing less than 50. Go ahead, Joe.
So I learn a lot by just listening to what you guys are, discussing here as we go whenever I pop in. But their goal is their technicians are. That's why they might use MeasureQuick, or they're using a process, no matter what it is, that my technicians are doing this, this, and this. They show up, they greet them this way, they do this, and they have a process that they're following. I'm shocked to hear that those salespeople don't have a process. I would be like, you can communicate slightly different. You can use your own little tone or personality. You can, wear your own shirt, kind of a concept, but I need to know that you're following this communication process. I need to know that you've mentioned these things, you've talked about that. So I guess I'm shocked to find out that you have salespeople without a process.
Hey, Timmy, do you want to tell them what most salespeople's process is like from the consumer experience? Okay. Tanner, you're going to have to do it.
Oh, not working.
No, you're still on mute, Timmy.
Okay, 1 second.
Okay. Working through some technical problems.
Timmy will be fun the way he tells us, I think.
Oh, good. He's breaking out the microphone. He's like, listen here, folks.
Don't
He's
drop
gonna
the
take
mic.
a sledgehammer to this bitch. What's that, Joe?
Don't
Somebody
drop the
turn.
mic. Yeah, don't drop the mic. It's
Don't
not
drop
that-
the mic. Don't drop the mic.
Yeah.
So
He's gonna-
yeah, it's shocking that you're going to be shocked to hear what the typical sales experience is for somebody asking for an HVAC quote.
Yeah, which I'm actually interested here. Did
You
he
still
have
muted
some?
yourself, Timmy.
Did he have like someone come out and like he be a prospect and see what someone's process was or something?
No, what you guys are talking about, like, well, if they can't do this, and they should then follow this process. I'm like, wait, why are they not following the process?
Why don't
From
they have
day one?
any process?
Why don't they have
Yeah.
any process? That's right. Your process could be so vague and whatever, but it's still a process. Like I need to know that you are, doing these few things, that are just like some of them are like silly. How you greet people and taking your
Yeah.
shoes off and shit like that. So
A lot of the
yeah.
process is, hi, I'm here to give you your quote. Where's your equipment?
Yeah. Yeah, the process is probably more of just a piece of paper that has, here's the measurements you need to take. Write down the model number, write down what the site, take a picture, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's still just blown away that their a chunk of their revenue is based upon somebody winging it.
It's
And some people are really good at it. I
Yeah.
know people are making.
some people are really good at it.
Yeah, they're making
Yeah.
200 plus a year on sales, and I'm like, damn, I should think about this. But
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Yeah. But I mean, it makes sense as to how that's the case because in actuality, the marketplace is not competitive in HVAC currently. It's like the bar is so low
Hello.
that anyone
Hello.
can do it. And so we got him in.
All right,
Better?
Timmy,
That's
tell us
Okay,
what
so-
you think about some of the different sales processes of typical HVAC companies.
So either it turns into people who are very high pressure, I would say often unethical. Sometimes it's rooted in more scare tactics than it is truth and looking for comfort. But then I think you get a lot of people who are have good intentions, who want to do good things, and these would be people I would say that are technical, that maybe have started their own company. Probably people who use MeasureQuick, who are fans of MeasureQuick, who then don't have a good process to convey to a customer in the customer's terms, understanding of how to differentiate things, how to understand things, and yet they may not know. They may say, "Oh, you should get a 2-stage. It's the way to go," without explaining to your customer why that's good, why that's bad. Just that's what they recommend.
All right, so I'm going to flip it. What would make a good salesperson, Tim?
I think educating the customer as much as possible, and then letting the customer make their own decision makes a good salesperson. Not trying to trick a customer, not trying to pressure a customer, not trying to
Be the hero.
be a
Show
hero.
up like the know-it-all, and
that's
I
a
know
big
exactly
thing.
what you need.
Right. Yeah, I think it's good to know technical things, but being able to convey those to a customer, it can be difficult at times. I mean, I think people really underestimate how technical HVAC is.
So technical.
Exactly. And we could, and you can, I think you can go beyond a customer. First off, you have to care, but you can't. I think Tanner said this before. You can't care more than the customer does. You can't do work for free, but you can't. That's you're gonna lose. If I did work for free, then I'm taking I'm taking food off my kids' table, kind of thing. But I do think I think I care a lot more than people out there and some of these bigger companies. So I think I'm what I charge should be close to what they charge, if not more. Um, so I think your price can be. I think there's people that don't charge enough because they don't feel like they're worth what you know. They don't feel like they're worth it, even though they may be very technical, be very sound, kind of thing like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which funny enough, it also seems like the same reason someone won't charge enough for themselves because they don't see the value they provide are the same ones who will basically tell the customer, hey, you need to do this. Because
Right.
everything is so locked into their own perspective. It's like they determine the price based on their perception of the value. Because it's
Don't
like,
get an
you know,
inverter equipment
yeah, because it's
because
like
they're
from,
too complicated.
yeah, or in that.
Heat pumps don't
They're
work. That's right.
they're too expensive.
Yeah.
Heat pumps
They're too-
don't work when it goes below 35.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. But it's like in reality, what we're really doing is it comes down, it 100% comes down to the customer's perspective. It's not even reality. It's how do they perceive the thing? And so at you as if you're a salesperson, your whole thing, when you go there, the only thing you're there to do is help guide their perspective towards the thing. That's it. You're hurting them up. If
Right.
if you're the one that if you're the type of herder that you go grab them by the wrist and go, you're going this way, and you jerk them and drag them, that's the forceful, high pressure sales guy. Nobody likes them. But if you go in and you have no process and you just kind of meander around, well, then you're not going to get anywhere. You're
Or
having to.
if you make progress somewhere in there and you don't have a process, there may be something that you either overpromise and underdeliver on.
Mhm.
So you also want to have a good process so that you are setting correct expectations with the customer as well.
Exactly.
We call that responsibly avoiding responsibility. Because homeowners will have these expectations that they create without articulating them. And by having a process that actually documents each step and what was said, then if the homeowner doesn't articulate a thing, even though they've been asked to articulate it, they can't later on make it up. Which, I mean, a lot of times there's a miscommunication where the homeowner hears one thing and the salesperson says another, and you really want those two things to kind of come together. And if they don't, you want it to be because the homeowner chose not to listen. Or else you're going to own the problem. So, and it is shocking because when these HVAC companies train their techs, they do train them all of that stuff. Put on your shoe savers, talk to the homeowner like this, ask them questions, talk to them about what you've diagnosed and what their different levels of option are based on how long they want to keep this equipment and how soon they want to replace it. How durable of a fix do you want for this problem? All of that stuff. I've seen that.
Do you actually have like comfort problems that you're trying to solve? Or is your single stage 3-ton system, you're completely happy with that? If you are, then why would we want to change anything?
Yeah, so we're trying to do that same sort of a process, Joe, that you see these companies that have really good service departments. We're trying to do the same thing for sales. And remember, I'm lazy and I didn't ever want to do any of this. Always, I was looking for somebody else to do this, and nobody else. There's like nobody's doing it.
Yeah, and I think too that this, so the where 2.0 started, it started as high level home performance, and
Comprehensive home performance,
and then
right?
it got to a mix of HVAC and home performance with our comfort console, and now it's come down to, you know, just HVAC. So if you excel at this as this process, you can then, it's easier for you to learn than home performance.
Well,
And
yeah, way easier.
make and progress that. So
We came from rarefied air and worked backwards, which is sort of hard. Like
so
we
you
were
can
launching the rocket ships.
so it's almost like learning a process. Like for me, I learned the process and then learned home performance. And so it was my introduction to home performance and how helping clients solve more complex problems than just HVAC. And so, like you can start at one point and keep progressing. You know, client, if a person really wants to, you know, progress and has a desire to help and grow their knowledge, you know, I think this process can help progress and do that. I don't think anybody else is teaching a sales process based on home performance.
I would say it's like at least at the free quote level where it's you're only doing HVAC, but there is an influence of home performance or building science that's baked into the process itself.
Right.
Because you're going to the building science, like the science is the science in regards to if you do certain things, you know, if you aggressively size with a large return drop, a large media filter, a fresh air duct with variable speed heat pump, you're going to get home performance level results with just HVAC because you're hitting a bunch of things all in one, and you don't even have to understand thoroughly what all those things are doing by going that route of installing, you know, the right size system set up in this one particular way, you know, trying to get certain things. Like you'll achieve things that you may not intuitively understand, but you're going to get those results. So there's some influence there, even if you're not aware of it.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So in other words, it's funneling great outcomes without putting people in a position where they have to do some really devastating backward stepping, like replace the equipment a second time, and keeping their options open.
Yeah.
For better solutions if it's not good enough based on the information we have. And without a blower door, a lot of it's guessing.
Yeah.
But so what we've done is we've created a process where we can safely guess we feel comfortable doing a bunch of things without a blower door. We started out from a position of we really want a blower door on every house. and then pretty quickly realized that was pretty ludicrous and not going to happen. And so how do we get fair solutions, a partnership with the homeowner, and help them understand the risks of their decisions, including the one not to have a blower door?
So, how do you guys try to get people to introduce themselves? Is my one thought. Like, if how are they coming across to their clients? What's your philosophy or structure that you're trying to get them to introduce themselves? Just we'll leave it at that.
I don't know if it starts off as so much of like an introduction. It's more like like we have our comfort quiz where we would like you to answer 4 questions based around your home comfort. And I think that maybe starts off as differentiating from what maybe other people would do. Answer these 4 questions, scale them 1 to 10, and then your score can change on what suggestions we would make. If you have high scores, that means you have high pain, you have high problems. So we may then want to suggest you do a blower door, a load calc, that kind of thing. If you have low scores, you don't have a lot of pain, you don't have a lot of problems. Sounds like your system has worked for you in the past. So maybe there's not as much correction as we need to do on that. But so I think we start off with that, with tell us where you're at and tell us the problems you have or don't have, instead of like just starting with, okay, here's our template for equipment choices. Which one do you want? Let's start out with, do you have problems? What are those problems?
I'm thinking more like, how do you define your expertise as the salesperson? Like, I worked in a grocery store 2 weeks ago, and now I'm here to sell you your new system, ma'am. Versus, I've been in this industry for several years, or not just like somewhere you're trying to. Is there anything you're trying to do to encourage them to show their knowledge? I know that's not all how we focus or how we do that, but there's some confidence that happens with. I sold Windows for a while, and I'm like, you know what? I was tired of actually installing these dang things, and I realized that people were getting crappy Windows. So I switched to sitting here in front of you to explain, here's the best window, and I give you a choice of 2. I'm not really here to move around a bunch of junky windows or whatever. So that's when I first was introduced to Sandler at the same time. I'm like, if this is what you're really interested in, then we can continue this conversation. But my goal isn't to send you down a path that doesn't make sense for you or me, blah, blah. But they knew that I knew Windows, or I knew something about how to talk about this system, as my defining way of connecting with them. And then I was like, okay, let's talk about why your Windows aren't happy right now. Tell me more about yourself and your Windows.
That's a good question, because it's something that I still kind of struggle with when it comes to, like, if someone asks me, if they just like, hey, like, what is it that you do? Whether it be a sales call or just out and about.
Mm-hmm.
Answering that question, although it should be easy, is not quite, because it's like, you ask that question in this type of space, it's like, well, get a seat because it's going to take a minute. Like,
I started telling people I'm good at solving problems.
But wait, you guys are missing the reverse. You probably don't have any problems, do you?
Right.
Yeah, right.
Right.
The one question,
I'm good at solving problems. Do you have problems? If not, I may not be a good fit for you.
But Tanner, I can't believe you don't have your little elevator 3-sentence speech kind of down more than what you just described. Like, what we work with homeowners like yourself to help them solve cover problems, and trying to encourage them to have the right system installed. But probably that's not what you're looking for, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do tend to, like, if it's a sales scenario, which granted, just because you're not in front of a customer that's called you to be there to look at replacing their system, doesn't that, it can be something other than that to be a sales spot. If it is that, the simple one that I've kind of been trying, that I use it because it's simple, but I can't say I'm just like super enthused with it. I just say, like, I'm an HVAC contractor who just so happens to be the one that can fix the problems that no one else can fix. It's if you've had 5 people and can't figure out what's going on, I can help you with that. But you probably don't need all that. So I like to keep it simple.
That's great. That's very good. Like, I do have a problem, and if you can solve other people's problems, that's probably it. But I want to go back to my original kind of question. So, is that, what are you trying to encourage people how to provide credibility at the sales call in front of the client, as trying to make sure that when they're talking about our values and other stuff that some people make them have, how are you how are you asking them to show, or in not just your voice, but what is it that's the introductory confidence that you're able to exhibit? I'm just curious as what you guys have for that, or what do you think of?
I mean, I think if you want to get the most credibility and perceived confidence that come out, I feel like it's in the pain discussion, can you accurately describe their pain better than them or equal to them? I feel like that's where you gain the most like if someone's had a problem and let's say they've had to have someone out, if you can go, if you can describe this problem they're having and then describe what someone else has probably already told them and then tell them that you probably feel like that it was a nonsense answer, that can get a lot of credibility to where and here's an example of, everyone knows of DR Horton houses. They're throwing them up everywhere. And if you go in behind, say it's a newer house and someone's dealing with my back bedroom's, hot or whatever. And you can describe, oh yeah, it's probably, you probably wake up in the middle of the night sweating thinking, wow, this is a problem. But you've had someone else to check on it and they go, well, we looked at your unit, it's working fine, it's just how, it's just the sun's just coming in from this side, that's just how it is. And I know that's probably what the answer they were given. That's something that they can go, oh, this guy, he understands me, he knows that it's a problem, and he knows that it is not something that just should happen this way. They're immediately going to be like, you didn't even tell them anything technical. They're going to have a lot of confidence and credibility of, oh, you finally somebody that understands the problem that I've been trying to portray. I feel like that is the most potent way of getting that.
Great.
So it really starts kind of with the one question. So I'm here, I suppose, to replace your equipment that you've had for 17 years. Right? Why am I here? And then the next question is there any one thing that you're hoping your new equipment would do that your old equipment didn't do? And then that leads into the comfort quiz, which is asking questions about, do you have temperature imbalances? Do you have problems with humidity? Do you have problems with indoor air quality? Anybody have health issues? And based on the answers to those 4 questions, we're going to scale them. And if you're yes to any or all of those, and you have low pain score with each of them, then they're not a big problem. They're just a minor annoyance, and you're okay probably living with them for the next 15 to 18 years. And so that gets the whole thing rolling. And then the next part of it is, do you have a replacement specification? And then people will often say, what? And you're like, well, or are you hoping to get bids? You're going to get more than, are you making a decision today, or were you hoping to get a number of bids? And then from that, well, yeah, I'll probably get a couple of bids. Okay, so then do you have a specification of your replacement equipment that you would like me to bid to, so that all of your bids are apples to apples? And now you got the homeowner thinking, oh my God, how am I going to make a decision on HVAC replacement if I'm asking for a Chevy here and a Dodge there and a Ford over here? I got to decide I want a Ford with heated seats, and you got to narrow in. You got to give me a specification to bid to. Okay, so you don't have that. Would you like me to help you build one? And this is actually, I think, an extremely valuable service for homeowners, is helping them build a replacement specification that they can then go get bids on.
And that doesn't sound like an introduction, so to speak, but I think there's a lot of, I don't think any companies out there are starting their process that way.
No.
As
it's customer facing.
Right. A way of trying to understand more as really trying to understand the root of the customer's problems.
I can see most people are sitting down at the table and pulling out a bunch of brochures and shoving stuff around and let's talk about that. And eventually they were like, well, if you can tell me about your budget, then I can show you what papers I want to shove in front of you. So I think that's kind of like the most common approach. And if the people like the person, then and usually I would. It's not always a guy, but I'm sure that most time it is.
Right.
Talking to you about your system and like, fine, Frank, we're going with you. That's okay. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And also kind of
That
something that's
doesn't
also,
sell $28,000 systems, unfortunately.
yeah. Yeah. Which I think on the other end of the spectrum, you also kind of have those, I mean, everyone's seen insert the name of any slimy sales trainer that we've all seen on Facebook multiple times. But you kind of get these types of people who they do have a process, but their process is so, what's the word? It's like,
Smarmy.
yeah, it's like the whole intention is to just be very persuasive.
They want to
in
build
that-
urgency is the lingo they use.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you go in and it's like, okay, first thing you have to do is you have to build rapport immediately. So you're going in and you're just like you're looking around. You're like, oh, you see a football on the signed football on their shelf, and so you start talking football with them, and you're just like forcibly like creating this artificial rapport, and you do all this stuff. But like at the end of the day, most people, even if they can't define it, they can sense it. Like, this is off. Like he's doing this, but this is fake. Like I don't trust it, and then you're creating this urgency of like, oh well, actually we're running a promotion that it just so happens to be today. It was, it's June 23rd on a Monday. We're running this special and you have 2 hours to make a decision. And if you'll get this right now, we're going to save you 20 grand. This system normally costs 60, but we're going to sell it to you for 32. Buy it now. It's like no one likes that. And if you do, and people do make those sales, but when you make those sales, they don't walk away being like, wow, I'm really glad I did business with these people. You walk away going, I'm shell shocked. Like what just happened? Well, at least it's over. It's over. I paid for the system. That's your best case scenario. And it's such a transactional way of doing business. Well, we are an hour and 47 minutes in now.
Joe, you asked great questions. Thank you for
Yeah.
coming.
I try. You're a constant on my calendar, and I get a reminder, and I'm like, oh, I'm around. I'll just
Yeah.
chime
Thank
in,
you.
see what
Thank you
got.
for coming.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
really interesting to have these questions from somebody who's sort of new, because we've all been doing it so long, we have trouble seeing it through your eyes. And so it's really nice to have
New with this process.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that I am trying to learn more about your process. I wish I had more time to be like, oh, I'm just going to spend this week on 2.0 or whatever.
Right.
That's not reality.
You
But
don't
I
get
do-
paid to do that though, do you?
No.
No, it doesn't happen. So, and you're not worthy of a hobby yet. So, right.
Well, if you decide you want to go into HVAC sales, this would be worthwhile for you, because he's like Ronnie made 380 last year.
Wow.
Oh, well, do we want to close it out and head to the after show?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming. And again, if you're interested in what Joe has going on, it is upskillhvac.com. Go check it out, book it, keep tabs on it, see when they're coming up, and go attend something because it's good stuff.
Appreciate you, Tanner.
Yeah, no problem. See y'all in 2 weeks.